Part 26. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 251. Next, we have to hang this thing up. The artificial sun slowly flew into the sky under the control of the power. It covered the entire sky and illuminated the entire valley just like the sun hanging in space. The valley was just like daytime at this moment, with basically no difference. Chen Mu looked at the mini sun in the sky. He retracted his gaze and looked at the fruit trees around him. It would take about 4 years for the Earth to fly to the position of Proxima Centauri, so what should he do during this time? Chen Mu fell into deep thought. He was thinking about what he needed. He only had one pursuit left, which was to obtain evolutionary energy, and then see what abilities he could gain after the next evolution. And now this pursuit is in progress and takes time. To kill time, you have to find another interest. What interest? Chen Mu found that apart from evolutionary energy, he had no interest in anything else. People have 7 emotions and 6 desires. But Chen Mu himself was a person who was cold and overly rational by nature, and now after many changes in his position, his emotions were directly wiped out. Having lost his emotions, he couldn't find anything that interested him. Chen Mu looked at the fruit trees in front of him and said, "Forget it, let's plant some trees. By the way, system, do you have any seed templates from other planets in your knowledge base? Take them out and play with them." In this way, Chen Mu used the seed templates in the system knowledge base to plant trees in this valley, and then he got bored. He started to chat with the system. "System, you said that my body is the Earth, so how did you let me get the speed of light ability?" Chen Mu asked the question he had always been curious about. If the system can give an answer to this question, then he can ask it about the birth of his other abilities. In this way, he can create new abilities. However, after Chen Mu asked, he waited for a minute, but he didn't hear any answer. System. Still no sound. This is the same as before. When faced with some special questions, the system will not answer, and it is estimated that this time is the same. Chen Mu asked in a different way, saying, "System, I want to reach the speed of light now, what can I do?" The system quickly gave a reply, "You can use the warp engine." Chen Mu's mouth twitched. Isn't this the same answer as before? It seems that this system does not want me to create abilities. No. Chen Mu's heart moved. Since the system said that if I want to move at the speed of light, I need to create a huge warp engine. Then, what if this system itself has an extremely huge warp engine? There is another question, what is the essence of this system? Is it really a voice that appears in my mind, and what the voice says is what it is? This is impossible. Unless, this system is an extremely huge machine, a giant machine with various functions. And that machine is just connected to me. When it is given the ability, it is actually the function that the machine itself has in operation. And the light speed ability is actually a warp engine in this huge machine system? Thinking of this, Chen Mu suddenly felt enlightened. So that's how it is. However, this is just my guess. Whether it is true or not is unknown. Of course, it is probably useless to ask the system about this guess. The system will not explain itself. After thinking for a while, Chen Mu got up from the bed and said, "System, my main body cannot use the warp engine. Can I use it now?" "Both the main body and you can use it," the system gave an answer. Chen Mu raised his hand and covered his face. He was annoyed to death by the system. What this guy said was indeed right. The main body can indeed be used, but it will take 600 million years to make it. Chen Mu said, "It's my fault for not making it clear. I mean, if I use my current body to use the warp engine, how long will it take to build the warp engine?" The system gave an answer, "Half an hour." Chen Mu's eyes lit up. "What are you waiting for? Atomic creation. The warp engine requires a speed that can be used by my current body. System, what is the upper limit of the speed of the warp engine? Unlimited. The system quickly gave an answer. There is no upper limit to the warp engine. What the warp engine provides is not our speed, but the direct distortion of space. Just like running on the playground, if you want to sprint 50 meters, under normal circumstances, it is from the starting point to the end point. The warp engine distorts space, or even folds it up. If a person uses the warp engine when sprinting, it means folding the starting point and the end point of 50 meters together. You can even stay still and go from the starting point to the end point instantly. In other words, the upper limit of the warp engine is teleportation, which is equivalent to no upper limit. How long will it take to build an unlimited warp engine for my current form? Shenmue knew that the faster the speed, the more complicated it must be, and the more time it would take. Half a month, the system's voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Shenmue's heart was moved. There is no upper limit, it only takes half a month. In other words, as long as you endure it for half a month, you can go wherever you want? Okay, then half a month. Other side. More than a week has passed since Shenmue changed the Earth's landscape and created his own valley. At this time, on the mountains, an old general wearing black armor and a long sword looked at the night sky. He had a skinny face like tree bark, but his eyes were very deep, like a pair of black gems. The depletion of spiritual energy, the strange phenomena of heaven and earth, and this eternal night have caused countless humans to be killed by wild beasts, starve to death, and even start wars for food and territory. A large number of humans die every day. The sky is going to abandon. Are you human? The old man said, holding the hilt of the sword at his waist and looking at the sky. General Zhong. At this time, a voice sounded from behind. Hearing this voice, General Zhong Hao turned slightly and looked at the soldiers behind him who were also wearing armor. He said, "Oh, it's Lin Xiao. How is the situation?" Lin Xiao looked at the tall and thin general of Lonji Kingdom in front of him, his eyes full of admiration. Zhong Hao didn't look as old as he does now. Before his spiritual energy dried up, he was the general of Lonji Kingdom, a super powerful being second only to the sword god. After that, although the spiritual energy was exhausted, Zhong Hao still led the team as always to suppress the thugs caused by the turmoil caused by the exhausted spiritual energy. Although he no longer had the spiritual support he had before, he was still as strong and brave as ever. More importantly, Zhong Hao did not do things for himself. He knew that without the support of spiritual energy, he would die easily, but he still went forward for the sake of the people of Lonji Kingdom. Zhong Hao admired his approach very much. Lin Xiao said, "Our spies were ordered by the general to go to the valley that suddenly appeared that week to investigate, and found that there was a sun above the valley, illuminating the entire valley. The valley was like daytime, and all kinds of plants in it were its lush, and you can even see a lot of fruit." "Spies, pick a few," Lin Xiao said, taking out 2 red fruits and handing them to Zhong Hao. Zhong Hao's eyes lit up when he saw the fruit Lin Xiao took out. He took it and looked at the ripe fruit. Zhong Hao looked a little excited. "This is hope, this is the hope of us humans." This was not because of how delicious the fruit was, but because the existence of the fruit gave Zhong Hao hope for mankind. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 252. Lin Xiao looked at Zhong Hao's excited expression, and he was a little confused. "General, is this hope?" Zhong Hao said, "Yes. Since the vision of heaven and earth, the world has ushered in eternal night. Because of the influence of eternal night, people cannot farm, and plants have withered and died because of the loss of sunlight. No matter what happens in that valley, as long as the plants in the valley can grow, it means that the sun in the valley is the real Sunday. If the plants in the valley can survive, it can bring food to us humans." Said at this point, Zhong Hao paused and said, "Even if we can't bring food to all mankind, at least we in Lonji country can feel at ease. Having said this, Zhong Hao looked at Lin Xiao and said, the entire army must gather outside the valley and continue to send people into the Hope Valley to explore. Yes. This time, Zhong Hao led his army to station on the plain outside the entrance of the valley. Then they sent out men to explore the valley. Obviously, Zhong Hao was a little cautious. The previous spies only entered the valley and then returned. As for whether there was any danger inside, no one knew. Therefore, Zhong Hao did not dare to let the army enter directly easily. Instead, he chose to let people enter again to explore and wait for the results. This time the scout team was the same exploration team from before. This time, Captain Lu Yu once again led the team into the valley. With the first experience, Lu Yu's team was naturally familiar with the road this time and entered the valley again. Look at the green and bright world in front of you. Everyone in the entire team felt relaxed. It's really strange. Why is there only sun in this valley? Speaking of the sun, everyone raised their heads and looked at the mini sun hanging in the sky. This mini sun illuminates the entire valley, making it look like daytime. I don't know, Lu Yu said, why is there the sun in the valley? We need to pay attention to this issue, but not now. What we need to do now is to determine whether there is any danger in this place. Yes, the other 6 companions responded at the same time. Lu Yu waved her hand and walked forward. 7 people entered the woods in the valley. These people held bows, arrows, and machetes. The man holding a machete waved the machete in his hand to cut off the branches blocking the road in front and open a path ahead. Those holding bows and arrows looked around to observe the surrounding situation. The 7-person pathfinding team went deeper into the woods little by little. This seems to be an orchard. Well, although I don't recognize many of the trees here, they all bear fruit. They look like fruit trees planted deliberately by someone. Will anyone live here? There are people living in it. You mean, this valley was created by someone? This is impossible. If it could really be done to this extent, it would not be human anymore. That's God. Speaking of this, everyone had some strange emotions in their hearts. The original name of this valley was the Arctic Plain, and before this valley appeared, their team fought here. As a result, the valley suddenly appeared overnight. This kind of ability to conquer the sky and the earth is impossible for humans, and only God can do it. In other words, there is a true God living in the valley. Everyone's mood is surging. At this time, a rich aroma filled the air. After smelling the aroma, everyone in the team subconsciously looked in one direction. There is a fruit tree over there. The shape of this fruit tree is very strange. It's like an overturned mushroom. The roots of the tree are very short, only about 1 meter, but the roots are very thick, and the top looks like an overturned mushroom cap. In the middle of the mushroom cap, there is a tree trunk as thick as an adult's waist. At the end of the trunk is a red fruit as big as a basketball. Next to the fruit, there are branches one after another. The branches stand high and there are green fruits one after another on them. The rich aroma just now came from the fruit in the middle. Goo goo. However, at this moment, a voice sounded. It's the sound of a stomach growling. Hearing this voice, everyone looked at the man. The man smiled awkwardly and said, "Sorry, when I saw those ripe fruits, I couldn't help but." Hungry Wolf, no wonder your nickname is Hungry Wolf. When you see delicious food, you get hungry, right? Everyone else laughed easily. In fact, he is not the only one who is greedy. Others are also a little greedy. You must know that it is basically impossible to eat fruit during this period. The food they eat during this period has given them a great psychological shadow. Those foods, they very repulsive. Now seeing the delicious fruit, I am naturally greedy. But because of the strict discipline of the army and the captain's silence, they did not dare to take action easily. Everyone looked at Lu Yu subconsciously. Lu Yu noticed their gaze and said, "If you want to eat, just eat whatever you want, as long as it doesn't delay the exploration work. When the spy nicknamed Hungry Wolf heard this, he smiled. Okay, do you hear that? The captain has said so. Don't snatch it from me. That fruit belongs to me. As he said that, the hungry wolf trotted towards the fruit tree. Can you eat such a big fruit by yourself? Haha, someone couldn't help but joke. The others looked at Hungry Wolf with amused expressions. At the same time, in the middle of the valley, there is a house. Chen Mu was sitting on the sofa. In front of him was a blue screen, which displayed the knowledge in various knowledge bases. The system was building a warp engine in the atomic space, which would take half a month. It would take time to build a warp engine, but Chen Mu didn't need to keep watching it. So, Chen Mu was very idle, so he decided to learn some knowledge about science and technology and browse the knowledge base. Of course, Chen Mu was not looking at the screen now, but was watching what was happening in the valley through his consciousness. Chen Mu had already seen through his consciousness that those humans had run into the valley he created. Of course, he didn't care. He planned to drive all these humans away or kill them all. And doing those two things was much easier for Chen Mu than eating a planet. But Chen Mu didn't do it because he was bored and just treated those intruders as monkeys to see what they were going to do. When Chen Mu saw those people approaching the predatory tree, his eyebrows relaxed. How ignorant! The predatory tree is a tree that grows from seeds that Chen Mu constructed through the knowledge base of the system when he was bored. This kind of tree has a characteristic, that is, it will create traps, lure animals to approach, and then, eat the animals. The hungry wolf climbed up the mushroom platform of the predatory tree, passed through the branches, and walked towards the source of the fragrance, that is, the fruit in the middle, under the gaze of his companions. Suddenly, the branches next to it moved, and they closed together, directly entangled the hungry wolf's body. The hungry wolf was stunned for a moment, and he subconsciously walked forward. But he found that he could not move. But he found that the branches were secreting a white juice, and this juice was like super glue, sticking to the hungry wolf, making him unable to move. What are you doing? The team next to him noticed that the hungry wolf did not continue to move forward, but they all showed doubts. Ah! The hungry wolf suddenly screamed. This scream made his companions put away their smiles, and each of them became a little nervous and uneasy. Gorilla, what's wrong with you? Gorilla's pupils trembled as he looked at the source of the severe pain. He saw that the juice secreted by the branches that were wrapped around his body was corroding his clothes and body. At the location of the severe pain, the clothes had been corroded, and the flesh was also being corroded. The severe pain came in waves. Gorilla wanted to raise his hands and cut off these things with the machete in his hand, but he was surprised to find that his hands were also stuck, and his whole body was surrounded by branches and could not move. No, save me! Save me! Gorilla shouted to the team behind him in panic. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 253. Lu Yu's expression changed as soon as he saw it. He moved almost subconsciously. He rushed over and was about to take action. But just half a meter away from the predatory tree, Lu Yu found that she couldn't move. His feet seemed to be stuck with something. When he looked down, his face changed drastically when he saw the scene. Under his feet were the roots of predatory trees. At this moment, the tree roots under his feet secreted white sap and stuck to Lu Yu, making Lu Yu unable to move. Lu Yu frowned and struck the ground with the machete in his hand. Chiang! Lu Yu felt a sharp pain in the tiger's mouth, and the machete in his hand flew out and fell to the side. Lu Yu raised his hand and looked at the cracked tiger's mouth. He subconsciously looked at the place where he cut. There was no scar at all on the root of his tree. How is that possible? Chen Mu said, it's really stupid. Prey trees live in a planet whose gravity is many times stronger than that of the Earth. In order to adapt to the planet's gravity, the density of predator trees is extremely high. Compared with the density of the trunks of predator trees, the density of predator trees is simply pediatrics. Trying to leave a wound on a predatory tree with a machete is a joke. Help me! Help me quickly! At this time, Lu Yu heard the scream. He looked back and saw that the hungry wolf had been wrapped in countless branches. The white juice covered his whole body. His body was steaming and his flesh and blood began to corrode. He was looking at this face. He is no longer human, only his pupils are full of fear, panic, and pain, still pleading, and there is also despair for death. Ah, along with the hungry wolf's scream, his body began to melt as if it had been thrown into strong acid. In fact, the sap of the predator tree is strong acid. This strong acid is strong enough to melt any animal in a short time and then convert it into nutrients that it can absorb. When the other 5 companions saw this, their expressions changed. Lu Yu looked at this tragic scene, his face turned pale, and before he could recover, he felt a sharp pain in the soles of his feet. When the pain came, Lu Yu's face changed. A biting chill rose from the soles of the feet, passed through the nerves in the cervical spine, went straight to the brain, and then spread throughout the body. It felt like being thrown into ice water. That's not cold, that's fear of death. He looked down and found that the soles of his shoes had melted, and the strong acid emitted by the tree roots was corroding his feet. Damn it, Lu Yu looked back at his companions and said, come here, save me. The hungry wolf had made no sound and was obviously dead. When the other 5 people saw this scene, one of them, who was more courageous, hurriedly said, okay, Captain, I'll be here right away. He was about to move, but suddenly he found that he couldn't move either. What's going on? He looked confused. When the other 4 people saw it, they also planned to move. At this moment, these 5 people seemed to realize something, and their expressions changed. When Lu Yu saw the 5 companions behind him, he felt a chill spread all over his body, and fear made goosebumps appear on his skin. He looked at the feet of the 5 people, and sure enough, there are also tree roots under the 5 people's feet. Those are the roots of the predatory tree. No, 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 one of the skinny men, after seeing this, his face turned as pale as paper. No. No, I can't die, I don't want to die. He took the knife and began to chop the roots below. Bang bang bang. But it still didn't work at all. However, the roots of the tree began to be filled with white sap, which became increasingly abundant. 5 people felt severe pain starting from their feet. No. 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 The body began to be corroded bit by bit. The skinny man couldn't help but mutter after seeing this. His eyes were full of fear. Suddenly his eyes turned cold and he looked at his feet. Notice the look in the skinny man's eyes. Lu Yu hurriedly said, Ling, what do you want to do? Ling gritted his teeth suddenly and waved the machete in his hand. Pht. Human feet are not as strong as these tree roots. Ah! A shrill scream sounded. Bang! Ling's body fell to the ground. He gritted his teeth and endured the severe pain. He looked at his companions and said, our army is outside. I will crawl out and tell the general about it. The general will come save us. With that said, Ling wanted to run out. However, Ling wanted to move, but found that he could not move. His expression changed. When he looked down, he found that under him, he could see that the white juice had stuck to his body underneath. He subconsciously raised his head and looked around. Looking at it, Ling discovered that the surrounding tree roots were filled with white sap, and the sap had already wrapped them all. Seeing this, Ling's pupils trembled, his mouth opened slightly, and he couldn't say anything for a while. Chen Mu on the other side watched the scene through his conscious vision. He closed his conscious mind. The predatory tree is a carnivorous plant found on other planets. Before the fruit matures, the fruit will emit a strong aroma, attracting surrounding animals. Then as long as the animals pass by and run to the mushroom platform of the predator tree, the predator tree will wake up and start to release the adhesive and corrosive juice melts the animal directly into nutrients, which are then directly absorbed. When the fruit is ripe, the predatory tree will still make the fruit release a strong aroma. At this time, if animals eat it, the predatory tree will not take action, but let the animals eat the fruit, and then let the animals help it spread the seeds. The fruit of the predatory tree is extremely delicious, which is why Chenmu planted it. However, Chenmu made these humans unlucky for this fruit. Breaking into other people's homes and stealing other people's things, I believe these people should be mentally prepared to die, Chenmu muttered, turned on the blue screen, and continued to start a new round of science and technology learning. As for the 7 people, it is basically impossible to survive. Before the fruit is ripe, the predatory tree is a very terrifying plant. Its roots can cover the land within a radius of 50 meters. It is usually blocked by sand and cannot be seen, but when hunting, then all animals within a radius of 50 meters will become food for the predatory tree. It is impossible to escape, not to mention that these 7 people are only 5 meters away from the predatory tree. The awakening of the predatory tree means that they are dead. Just as Chenmu thought. In less than 3 hours, the 7 humans are gone, nothing is left. 5 days later. Haven't come back yet, General Zhonghao looked at Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao said, yes, when they left, I asked them to come back within 3 days no matter what. Now 2 days have passed, and it seems that they can't come back. Zhonghao frowned and said, send 2 teams. Yes. In this way, 2 teams of 7 entered the valley together. Soon, screams rang out in the valley. Of course, these screams were just a boring show for Chenmu. As time passed, finally, a voice sounded in Chenmu's ears, and he was excited. The warp engine has been successfully built. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 254. Along with the sound of the system, Chenmu saw a silver-white thing appearing in front of him, which was suspended in mid-air. Is this a warp ball? Chenmu observed this thing. This thing is a mechanical sphere. During this time, Chenmu had studied knowledge about warp engines. Naturally, he also recognizes this thing. He raised his hand and took the mechanical sphere. It feels cool and heavy in the hand. Chenmu clasped his hands together. The mechanical sphere shrank when Chenmu held it in his hand. A contraction. The mechanical sphere suddenly dispersed and turned into countless small particles. The particles formed a screen in front of Chenmu, and countless star outlines appeared on the screen. Chenmu looked at the picture on the screen. These stars formed the shape of a galaxy. It was obvious that this was the Milky Way. After the warp ball is activated, the map will be displayed first, and then the location will be selected. Therefore, when Chenmu saw the scene in front of him, a problem arose. Where am I going? Chenmu currently has a destination, which is to go to Proxima Centauri, but the problem is that if he wants to go to Proxima Centauri, his body must be there, otherwise he will not be able to swallow the planets on the other side of Proxima Centauri. If it can't be swallowed, then going to Proxima Centauri is meaningless. It makes no sense, so why go to Proxima Centauri? Chenmu thought for a moment and suddenly had an idea. Search using life. Chenmu has created many lives, but so far, he does not know what life outside the solar system looks like. He is interested, he wants to know what life outside the Earth looks like. Just in time, now you can use this life search ability that you haven't used yet. Searching, the voice of the system sounded. Chenmu also moved when he saw the screen in front of him. Suddenly, the screen was pulled into the galaxy and locked on a planet. Through the screen, Chen-Mu could see a blue planet, which looked somewhat similar to the Earth. But it's big. The size of this form is 3 times the mass of the Earth. The search has been completed. There are life forms in the nearby planet called Tar Star, which is 20 light-years away. What kind of life forms would there be on this planet? Chen-Mu was interested and said, "Search engine, go to Tar Star." Accompanied by Chen-Mu's voice. The screen suddenly shrinks. Reassembled and turned into a pistol. Chen-Mu raised his hand, holding the pistol. He raised his hand and pointed the gun forward. Pull the trigger. Suddenly, the space in front of him was instantly penetrated by bullets. Boom. Accompanied by a loud bang. The house where Chen-Mu lived collapsed. Dusty. Chen-Mu stood among the ruins and looked at the collapsed house. He looked at the thing in front of him again. In front of him was a giant circle with a radius of 10 meters. The warp engine has been turned on, and a hole has been torn out in the space here. Chen-Mu's house is just a small one-story house. Once the space is torn, the house will naturally collapse. Through this circle, Chen-Mu could see the plants on the other side. It's just that these plants are a little strange. Chen-Mu stepped into the giant circle. As soon as he entered, his eyes lit up. The surrounding environment has changed. Chen-Mu subconsciously looked back at the giant circle behind him. Is this a warp drive? This feels like Doraemon's portal. It was a little too fast. Chen-Mu couldn't feel any movement at all. He just took a step and knew he was here. You know, this place is 20 light-years away from the Earth, and that step is a distance of 20 light-years. This is the warp engine. When there is no upper limit to the speed, the warp engine is equivalent to instant movement. If there is an upper limit on speed, then a space tunnel will appear between the exit and the entrance, and people will pass through that space tunnel before they can reach the exit. But Chen-Mu's warp engine has no upper limit. Chen-Mu withdrew his gaze and began to observe the surrounding environment. He was in a forest at the moment, but the woods that Chen-Mu understood were different. He raised his head and looked in front of him. This tree is estimated to be over 500 meters tall. You must know that the height of a tree on Earth is only over 100 meters high. Since the planet has gravity, trees need to absorb water. If the tree is too tall, it will be crushed by its own gravity. At the same time, water cannot be transported to the tree tops. These effects will cause the trees to be unable to grow. Too huge. But the trees on the planet in front of me subvert common sense. Through the vision of consciousness, Chen-Mu saw it. Where he was a forest. This is a forest of extremely huge giant trees. Every tree is as high as 100 stories tall, and every piece of grass is as tall as a story. This is a completely huge world. Chen-Mu spread his wings behind him and flew up. Fly into the air and open your consciousness. Observe the world. He discovered that this world also has high-rise buildings and cities. Obviously, the life in this world already has its own civilization. At the same time, there are also people here. They are dressed gorgeously and have long limbs, which are almost the same as humans. The only difference is that they have 4 ears, which are like hairless donkey ears, drooping slightly. They are 100 meters tall, which is very terrifying. They are completely 4-eared giants. This world is too big. This is a civilization similar to the Earth, but it is a giant civilization. Why is it like this? Chen-Mu asked this question. Chen-Mu opened the atomic vision and looked at the environment of this planet through the atomic vision. Tal is the name of this planet. Its gravity is much greater than that of the Earth, which also leads to it being able to lock a lot of gases. These gases include oxygen and carbon dioxide. The oxygen content of this world is as much as 40%. The density of all organisms on this planet is dozens of times higher than that of organisms on Earth. After seeing this, Chen Mu understood. The energy available on this planet is too rich. On Earth, plants cannot grow too large because the gravity of the Earth will crush them to death, and water cannot be transported to the upper part. The root cause of this is that the energy that the Earth can provide to plants is limited. But on this planet, these plants can get enough energy, and they have a more terrifying density than the plants on Earth, because even if the gravity of this planet is very strong, it can't crush those plants. They can grow very tall because their ability to transport water is more developed and more advanced. The same is true for animals and humans. It's really interesting, Chen Mu couldn't help but exclaimed. Chen Hao flapped his wings and flew into this world to start a new exploration. Time passed little by little. The warp engine did not shut down because of Chen Mu's departure, and the entrance was still in that position. At this time, Zhong Hao walked out of the fruit tree with a group of soldiers in a panic. Half a month has passed since the death of the first exploration team. Although many soldiers died, Zhong Hao did not give up. In the end, they entered the valley and came to where Chen Mu was. Zhong Hao looked at the circle in front of him and the environment inside the circle, and he showed a trace of doubt. Zhong Hao didn't know that what he was seeing now was the entrance to another planet, and also a Pandora's box. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 255. What is this? Zhong Hao looked at the huge space entrance in front of him. This space entrance is circular, with a radius of 10 meters and a diameter of 20 meters. It is a very huge object. From the front of the entrance, you can see the appearance of this entrance, but from the back of the entrance, you can see nothing. Zhong Hao can see the different environment inside through the entrance. Zhong Hao is confused. Is this a door? Lin Xiao looked at the circle in front of him. Door. Zhong Hao looked at the so-called door in front of him, and he was a little confused. Lin Xiao said, I'll go in and take a look. Zhong Hao said, wait a minute. As he said that, Zhong Hao squatted down, picked up a stone from the ground, and then threw the stone into the space entrance. The stone entered the space entrance and fell on the ground full of dead leaves. It seems that nothing happened to the stone. Seeing this, Zhong Hao was relieved and looked at Lin Xiao. Go. Lin Xiao nodded. He walked forward and stepped through the space entrance. When Lin Xiao passed through the entrance formed by the warp engine and stepped into the tall star, Lin Xiao felt a strong weight pressing on him for a moment, and every cell in his body felt the terrifying weight. The moment he felt the weight, his face changed. This is the effect of gravity. Although the mass of the Earth is already 1.3 Jupiter masses, which is much larger than the current tall star, it protects people due to the instant adaptation, allowing people to live like on the original Earth. And now the gravity of tall star is much stronger than the original Earth. The effect of gravity is not directly pressing on oneself, but directly acting on all organs, all tissues, and even all cells in the body. Lin Xiao felt the gravity that was much heavier than the Earth. After feeling the change in the environment, he was a little scared at first, fearing that he would die here in the next second. But after a while, he found that he was fine, and Lin Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. He looked back and saw Zhong Hao and others behind him looking at the side through the entrance. Although the gravity of tall star is much heavier, it is not fatal. For ordinary people, if the gravity exceeds twice that of the Earth when traveling from one planet to another, their hearts will stop beating instantly and they will die. The gravity of Tal is nearly twice that of the Earth. Normal people who come here will basically die. But Lin Xiao is different. Lin Xiao has absorbed nanorobots before. Although the nanorobots disappeared, the nanorobots have strengthened his body, so he can resist the gravity of Tal. Of course, for Lin Xiao, who has zero knowledge of physics, he doesn't know what's going on. Lin Xiao raised his hand to them, motioning them to stay there and not move. He raised his head and looked at the surrounding environment. When he saw the surrounding environment, he was stunned. is this a tree? After seeing those huge trees, Lin Xiao was stunned. Bang! Bang! Suddenly, Lin Xiao heard a series of strange noises. His face changed drastically, and he turned his head to look in one direction. Over there, a giant with 4 ears was carrying an axe and walking towards the side. After seeing the giant who was 100 meters tall, Lin Xiao's pupils trembled. He turned around in a hurry and rushed back to the warp engine. His body passed through the space entrance and returned to Zhonghao. Looking at Lin Xiao, who was panicked, Zhonghao said, "What's wrong?" Lin Xiao's face was pale. He walked to Zhonghao and looked at the entrance in a hurry, saying, "Run, run, there is a monster, a monster. There is a monster in this entrance. It's coming, it's coming. Run," Lin Xiao shouted hurriedly. Zhonghao frowned and said, "Everyone retreat to the orchard and hide." Yes. At Zhonghao's order, everyone left this place and retreated to the orchard. Zhonghao hid behind a big tree in the orchard, looking at the space entrance. I saw that the giant gate that was 20 meters high shook, and a pair of human feet could be seen on the opposite side, blocking the gate. Seeing the feet, Zhonghao's pupils shrank. How is it possible? That door is 20 meters high? But the pair of human feet, standing on the opposite side, can only see the section from the soles to the knees of this gate. What does this mean? Zhonghao's mind was blank, and his eyes were staring straight at the gate. At this time, the owner of the pair of feet on the opposite side bent down, and a face appeared above the gate. A snow-white face with a pair of blue pupils appeared on the opposite side. The extremely huge pupils turned and looked at the world in front of him. Seeing the white face, the blue pupils were full of curiosity. Zhonghao's mouth widened. The other soldiers who saw the scene were shaking in their legs. Impossible, impossible. At this time, a more shocking scene appeared. The giant with 4 ears on the opposite side stretched out his hand and reached in from the opposite side. My God, he is coming in, this monster is coming in. No, this is not okay, this is not okay. Everyone panicked. The other party's huge body actually drilled in from the opposite side. After the other side came in from the opposite side, Zhonghao finally saw the other side's appearance clearly. This is a giant who looks like a human. Oh my God, someone shouted. Monster, a monster with 4 ears. The soldiers were already panicking, and their faces were a little panicked and frightened. But what was behind the gate? The giant was 100 meters tall, and standing there, he seemed to be able to touch the clouds directly. He was extremely strong, wearing casual clothes, with a very white face and 4 ears. The giant was very large and looked very scary. After the guy came in, he looked around. Suddenly, his pupils condensed slightly, and his hands suddenly covered the position of his heart. Under the gaze of everyone, his huge body suddenly fell down. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise. Dust flew. The giant's eyes widened and stared at the front, but the light in his pupil slowly disappeared. This scene made Zhonghao and everyone confused. Zhonghao and Lin Xiao looked at each other. Lin Xiao and Zhonghao both had confusion in their eyes. What's going on? The Earth's instant adaptability will protect the creatures that originally existed inside the Earth, allowing the creatures to adapt to the Earth's environment. But it was not so good for the tall man from Tal. The gravity generated by 1.3 Jupiter masses instantly deprived the tall man of his life. The tall man could withstand the gravity of Tal, but it could not adapt to the terrifying gravity brought by 1.3 Jupiter masses. Of course, Zhonghao and Lin Xiao did not know this. Zhonghao and others just breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, Pandora's box had just been opened. Suddenly, Zhonghao and others saw movement across the entrance. Another giant's face appeared in the air. He looked at the tall corpse lying here, and his blue pupils suddenly condensed. He stretched out his big hand, grabbed his companion's body, and then pulled the body to the opposite side. Under the gaze of everyone, the big hands quickly pulled the body back to the opposite side. That guy left with his companion's body. Zhong Hao's face turned pale, and he clenched his fists. At this moment, everyone present knew that although the giant had left, it was far from over. Pandora's box has been opened, and disaster is about to strike. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 256. Zhong Hao returned to Longji Kingdom and reported the incident to Queen Nalan of Longji Kingdom. After listening to Zhong Hao's description, Nalan's expression became very solemn. General Zhong, what do you think? Nalan looked at Zhong Hao. Zhong Hao said, behind that door is another world, an extremely huge world. The animals in it are all terrible monsters, and we can be sure that the two giants we saw earlier have smart, although they don't seem to be able to come in for the time being. If they do, it will definitely be a battlefield for us. In order to avoid this disaster, I propose to join forces with the northern bear country. Nalan shook his head. This is impossible. You also know the situation in the world now. The whole world is in chaos now. We just had a war with the Bear Kingdom on the Arctic plain, and now we want to reconcile with them. That's impossible. Not necessarily. Zhong Hao looked at Nalan and said, we can share the valley with sunlight plants and explain the pros and cons at the same time. Nalan's expression turned cold, and she looked at Zhong Hao. You mean, you want us to share this hard-won food with the northern bear country? General Zhong, you have to know that now in our country, Longji, there are a lot of people are starving, and people are starving to death every moment. The secret of growing plants in that valley is also the key to the survival of our Dragon Wing Kingdom. Zhong Hao said, but what if? Nalan said lightly, no ifs, General Zhong, I think you are overthinking. Didn't you say it before? Those giants can't come through that door. Since they can't come over, there's no need to worry about them. Now I want your army to guard the entrance of the valley, and then lead people to build granaries in the valley, and at the same time have people pick the fruits and send them back to the country. Queen. That's it. Nalan withdrew his gaze and looked ahead, not intending to pay any attention to Nalan. Zhong Hao opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but when he saw Nalan picking up the book and reading, he knew that there was no point in talking anymore. He could only salute and leave. In the Tar Star, Chen Mu used atomic creation to create himself a 100-meter tall angel body. The reason why he wants to do this is actually just for a simple purpose, unlike his body size which is too small. Everything in the Tar Star, whether it is ordinary animals or highly intelligent creatures, are too large. Shockingly big. Therefore, it will be much more convenient to investigate the world if you are larger. Chen Mu didn't like the feeling of being chased by cats on the road. Although those animals couldn't hurt him, they were an eyesore. By flipping through the repository of information on these Dar people, Chen Mu discovered that the technology of the Tal planet was already very powerful, and could even manufacture space flight and warp engines, allowing for a certain degree of space travel. Of course, their warp drive technology is not outstanding. Currently, they can only travel at twice the speed of light through the warp drive. Far from reaching the level of Chen Mu. You look so strange. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Chen Mu's ears. Hear this sound. Chen Mu came back to his senses from browsing the information library. He looked at the four-eared man next to him who was chatting with him. Judging from her figure and appearance, she must be a woman, right? In order to experience the life of the Tar people and to conveniently browse the information database of these guys, Chen Mu found a beverage hall and sat there. After all, flying in mid-air all the time is boring. It's just that because Chen Mu doesn't have four ears, he has wings on his back, and his appearance is completely different from that of the tar people. He naturally attracts a lot of attention. Chen Mu glanced at the four-eared person, looked away, and ignored her. The tar people have their own unique writing and language. Normally, people who are not here can't understand it, but Chen Mu has the ability to communicate with other people's languages. This ability automatically translates the other party's voice into something that Chen Mu can understand. Understandable voices. She stared at Chen Mu. You must have come from the time and space tunnel in the South Island, right? South Island, space-time tunnel? Chen Mu subconsciously looked at the four-eared man. Noticing Chen Mu's gaze, she smiled. I thought you came from the time and space tunnel, but now it seems that is not the case. Why did she think that Chen Mu was at first, but now she thinks that Chen Mu was not? Because when she spoke, Chen Mu reacted, and that reaction was one of understanding what she said. If she came from the time and space tunnel, she would naturally not understand what she said. Chen Mu's reaction made her realize that he might understand. Chen Mu slowly looked away. Seeing that Chen Mu had lost interest in her again, the female tar man was not ashamed at all and continued to pester Chen Mu and said with a smile, let me tell you, half a month ago, a time and space tunnel appeared over the South Island. Listen to those scientists who specially designed a drone to fly into the space-time tunnel. Do you know what the drone saw? Chen Mu said nothing. She continued to laugh and said, it's a human. I didn't expect it. Seeing that Chen Mu didn't respond, she seemed to have found someone to talk to, and said with a smile, there are many, many people over there, but I heard that those people are somewhat similar to us, but they are very, very small. I heard that they are just like us, as small as a tree rat. The tree rat is a creature here. That thing is not small, standing up to 2 meters tall. Of course, for the Tatars, there is no palm-sized one. It's just that our people can't go there now. The gravity there is many times greater than ours. The woman smiled and said, it's probably going to take a power mecha to get there. Do you think the people of that civilization behind that time tunnel know of our existence? She looked at Chen Mu. She stared at Chen Mu. Although she could tell from Chen Mu's reaction that he might understand her words, she couldn't be completely sure whether this person came from that time tunnel. This tall man was named Anu. The advanced intelligent life in the civilization has various ideologies. Some civilizations have only one consciousness, which represents all individuals on the entire planet. But in more civilizations, each individual has one consciousness. Different consciousnesses require external forces to maintain all individual consciousnesses and bind them into a whole consciousness. On Earth, the power that binds individual consciousness is the law, and those who maintain and enforce the law are law enforcers, collectively known as police. The consciousness in Tal is similar to that on Earth. Therefore, there is also law, an external force. And Anu is one of the law enforcers. Now, a strange man appeared in the area under her jurisdiction, so she came over to test this strange man. She wanted to know what was going on with this strange man. Chen Mu ignored her. He stood up and walked out on his own. Anu looked at her and said, hey. Chen Mu paused slightly. He turned his head slightly and looked at Anu behind him. He said lightly, I shouldn't have broken the law, right? Law enforcer, Miss Anu. Hearing the Tal language with the same accent as her, Anu was stunned. She smiled, I didn't expect you to know me. Chen Mu retracted his gaze and left on his own, not paying any attention to Anu at all. Anu watched Chen Mu leave. She felt a little weird, but this guy could speak Tal and recognize her, so it was basically certain that this person did not come from the time tunnel. Looking at the corner where Chen Mu disappeared, Anu muttered, did you have plastic surgery to make yourself look that weird? What a weirdo. After Chen Mu left, he walked with his hands around his chest thinking about a question. When Anu was talking to him, Chen Mu was directly browsing a news information database. Through a news information database, he naturally knew a news identity. In addition to this identity, Chen Mu also discovered one thing. That is, the Tal civilization is investigating the Earth through the space-time tunnel opened by the warp engine. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 257. Chen Mu opened his consciousness and expanded his vision. He saw the forest on the South Island and the giant circle in the forest. That circle was the space entrance left by Chen Mu with the warp engine. This thing was not closed, and around this entrance, a group of fully armed Tal warriors wearing mechas had been stationed. They had guarded the entire South Island. Obviously, these Tal people were worried that someone would come from the other side. Chen Mu was thinking that it would not be difficult to close that space. But Chen Mu did not intend to close it. He wanted to see what the Tal civilization and the current Earth civilization would do through this portal created by the warp engine. When a civilization capable of space travel is separated from another civilization still in the cold weapon era by only such a door, what will happen between the two civilizations? As time went on, Chen Mu noticed that the army of the Dragon Wing country on the current Earth occupied his valley, and then regarded the fruit trees in the valley as their own, and began to collect the fruits and transport them back to the Dragon Wing country. The Dragon Wing's army seemed to be only interested in the fruit trees in the valley. As for the portal, they avoided it far away. It was obvious that they were somewhat afraid of the portal. And because they avoided it deliberately due to fear, the people of Tal had more opportunities to collect intelligence about the Earth. They used various instruments to send them to the Earth through the portal to observe the Earth. In the history of Tal, they also had various wars, but with the development of science and technology, the countries of this civilization united to form a new organization, an alliance, the Tal Alliance. After 3 months of investigation and careful consideration, the highest person in the Tal Alliance made a speech. Earth civilization is only separated from us by a door. Now they are afraid of us because their civilization is behind ours, but if they surpass us and become a more advanced civilization, they will definitely pass through that door to attack us. For this reason, we must seize the opportunity while they are behind us and destroy them, so that they have no chance to grow, no chance to surpass us, and never have the chance to cross that door. All the warriors of the Tal Alliance, this is a holy war about the future of our civilization. When the highest leader of the Tal Alliance made this statement, the entire Tal civilization was boiling. Countless warriors wearing heavy mechas and holding guns gathered in front of the gate of time and space on the South Island. Accompanied by the commander's voice, "Enter." On the other side, Lin Xiao was collecting fruits from the fruit trees with his men. Lin Xiao stood in the orchard, looking at the warriors picking fruits, and he couldn't help but look at the space entrance in the distance. Ever since he saw the giant coming out of the door, he has been very uneasy. But even if he was uneasy, he had no way to deal with it. At present, Lin Xiao's main task is to protect the valley with the army and help the team pick the fruits back. But Lin Xiao always looked at the door involuntarily. The door was 20 meters high and could be seen from the front of the door. It was a very, very high height and could be seen from a distance. "Brother Lin." Hearing this voice, Lin Xiao came back to his senses and looked at a soldier beside him. The soldier looked at Lin Xiao with a smile and said, "It's ready." Lin Xiao nodded slightly, "Well, go ahead, be careful on the road." The soldier smiled, "Okay." Boom. Suddenly, a muffled sound rang out. This sound made Lin Xiao stunned, and he subconsciously looked at the source of the sound. The scene in front of him made Lin Xiao's face change drastically. I saw a giant wearing steel armor coming out from the door. His body was too huge, and after taking a step, the sound was particularly loud. A steel giant as tall as 100 meters climbed out. When seeing the steel giant, Lin Xiao's pupils trembled. The people who were busy in the orchard dropped the fruits in their hands when they saw the 100-meter tall giant. What is that? It's so big, such a big giant. Steel, that's a steel giant. Monster, there is really a monster over there. It's coming. Wait a minute, didn't they say that the giant would die after coming over? Why hasn't it died yet? The people who saw the steel giant were a little panicked, but thinking of the rumor that the giant would die when it came over, they suppressed their panic and fear and did not flee. However, the steel giant did not die, but looked at the door behind him. At this time, another steel giant walked in from the opposite side of the door. After that, steel giants came in one after another. Everyone watching this scene, including Lin Xiao, was stunned by the steel giants coming in one after another. Lin Xiao didn't know why this giant was wearing a suit of steel, why this giant would not fall down like before, but he knew that the thing he was most worried about was coming. Everyone listen. Retreat, Lin Xiao immediately gave the order. Upon hearing this, the soldiers, who were already so scared that their legs were weak, dared not stay any longer. They hurriedly left without even asking for food and ran away in a swarm. All the tall warriors passed through the door one by one and entered the earth. These tall warriors wore mecha suits that covered their entire bodies. The mecha suits protected their bodies and allowed them to survive easily in this giant earth where the oxygen concentration was much thinner than that of Tal and the gravity was several times higher than that of Tal. The tall warriors had assembled in the valley. There were tens of thousands of tall warriors, holding guns, standing neatly in the valley in front of them. The commander-in-chief, who was wearing a black mecha helmet and a black mecha, looked at the soldiers in front of him, then he retracted his gaze and looked at the officers wearing silver mechas beside him, and said, "The civilization of this planet is behind our civilization. They do not have the ability to destroy our mechas. You can treat them as primitive creatures without any mercy or affection. If their technological level is stronger than ours, then they will turn into demons and pass through this door to slaughter our families. And what we have to do this time is to completely eradicate this possibility. This is a holy war about the future of our civilization. You should feel honored for this. This time, our plan is to kill. All life on this planet will be exterminated." Yes. All the officers responded. One after another, the soldiers stood on their aircraft, holding guns. The aircraft sprayed flames, carrying the soldiers, and flew high into the sky. Hundreds of thousands of Tal soldiers dispersed and began their actions. The Tal civilization invaded the current Earth civilization and began their invasion. The town closest to Hope Valley is Wolf City in Dragon Wing Country. In Wolf City, Lin Xiao and others rode into Wolf City. He pulled the reins, looked at a soldier on horseback beside him, and said, "You go find General Zhong right away and tell him about this." The soldier said, "Yes." He patted his horse and left. Lin Xiao looked at the others behind him and said, "Wolf City is too close to the valley. We must let people leave Wolf City and flee." "Captain," suddenly, someone screamed. Hearing this, Lin Xiao looked at the person who spoke, only to see that person's eyes were fixed on the sky behind him. Lin Xiao's heart trembled, he raised his face, looked through the wall of Wolf City, and looked above the wall. Through the 12-meter-high wall, they could see far away. In the distant sky, countless steel giants standing on steel mounts that were spewing flames were flying towards the side. Seeing those steel giants, Lin Xiao's pupils trembled, and he was stunned for a while. This scene in front of him was too unbelievable. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 258. A giant as tall as 100 meters was flying in the air, holding a gun. Seeing these giants flying towards the side, Lin Xiao came to his senses, but found that there were many people standing on the streets of Wolf City, and these people were curiously looking at the giants in the sky. "Captain." Suddenly, a voice came. Lin Xiao came to his senses and looked back. I saw the giant in the sky holding a long-barreled weapon facing this side. If something was ejected from the long-barreled weapon, the thing would pass through the air. Under Lin Xiao's gaze, it crossed the sky and fell into Wolf City. Then, Lin Xiao saw the place where the thing fell suddenly exploded, and the scorching flames exploded instantly. The houses near the place where it was hit were engulfed by the flames and turned into powder, and the people standing nearby did not even have time to scream, and their bodies were instantly engulfed by the flames and turned into ashes directly. And the people standing farther away were instantly ignited, and they turned into firemen while screaming. Ah! The screams continued. Some people saw this and tried to escape. Suddenly, another bullet fell, and the man was blown to ashes. There were more than a dozen giants flying in the sky, and these giants used their long-barreled weapons to fire bullets with explosive energy one after another. As bullets fell into Wolf City, a raging sea of fire ignited in Wolf City, with scorching temperature, burnt smell, and the breath of death. It was everywhere. Lin Xiao, who was riding a horse, had the flames reflected on his face. His ears were so shocked that he couldn't hear anything. At this moment, he stared blankly at the scene in front of him. At this moment, a rage rose from the soles of his feet and rushed straight to his brain. The fear on his body disappeared directly, leaving only boundless murderous intent and anger. He looked back at the giant in the sky, and he gritted his teeth, "Asshole, come down to me if you have the guts." At this moment, death enveloped the entire Wolf City. People only had time to scream and flee. In front of these giants who were 100 meters tall, they had no power to fight back and were slaughtered unilaterally. After these giants launched a round of bombing on Wolf City, they landed in Wolf City and began to clean up the remaining battlefield with guns. Lin Xiao looked at the tall warriors who fell in Wolf City. He gritted his teeth, held the machete in his hand, pulled the reins of the horse, and flew towards the nearest tall warrior. When he approached the nearest tall, Lin Xiao's machete slashed at the foot of the tall warrior. Clang! Accompanied by a crisp sound. Lin Xiao felt a sharp pain in his eagle's mouth, and the machete in his hand broke into 2 pieces. Lin Xiao rode his horse and ran away quickly. He looked at the broken knife in his hand, and his face became extremely ugly. He suddenly raised his face and found that the giant had raised his foot and stepped directly on Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao's pupils trembled slightly, no. Accompanied by a muffled sound. Lin Xiao's body and the horse were stepped on by the giant. The tall warrior moved his feet away, revealing the flattened bodies of the man and the horse and the blood that was spilled. After taking a glance, the tall warrior looked around and began to look for other survivors. At the same time, in the sky 10,000 meters away from Wolf City, a fighter was flying towards the direction of the Mecha continent. Recently, the mechanical race has established their home in the Mecha continent on Earth. At the same time, these mechanical races learned from their leader Sandstorm that they and the life on Earth are of the same origin, so the mechanical race began to regard other highly intelligent life on Earth as friends. Knowing that other highly intelligent life on Earth is facing various disasters, the mechanical race is helping the angels while building their own homes to spread scientific and technological knowledge to the highly intelligent life on Earth. And the guy who looks like a fighter plane at an altitude of 10,000 meters in Wolf City is the warrior Thunder Eagle of the mechanical race who is carrying out the task of spreading science and technology. The Thunder Eagle saw the flames coming from the ground in the sky. Strong energy radiation has been captured. The intelligent device in the Thunder Eagle sounded a prompt. Search for the source of energy radiation, go to the source of energy radiation. Searching, the source of energy radiation has been determined, and we are starting to go. The fighter turned around at an altitude of 10,000 meters and flew towards the direction of Wolf City. In Wolf City. Woo, Mom. A little girl in ragged clothes knelt in front of a charred corpse, her little face full of tears, looking at her mother's corpse at a loss. At this moment, her face was full of tears. She wiped her tears with one hand and pushed the charred corpse with the other hand, shouting, "Mom!" A tall warrior heard the movement here. He looked at the little girl, raised the gun in his hand, and pointed the gun at the little girl. He put his finger on the trigger of the gun and was about to press it down. Bang! Accompanied by a gunshot. The tall warrior's head exploded. Blood splattered. The body of the tall warrior slowly fell to the ground. In the air, a purely mechanical body was flying in the air, holding a gun, and the muzzle of the gun was facing the tall warrior, with white mist coming out of the muzzle. That mechanical body was Thunder Eagle, a warrior of the mechanical race from Mars. Thunder Eagle put away his gun and slowly landed on the ground. He looked at the body of the tall warrior and found red blood overflowing from the mecha suit. Thunder Eagle's golden pupils glowed red. "I didn't expect that there is still blood in your body. However, you, a guy with blood, don't even let children go. As a warrior, Thunder Eagle looks down on trash like you." Suddenly, Thunder Eagle heard a noise. He subconsciously turned his head and saw a gun pointed at him. Thunder Eagle's pupils condensed slightly, and he quickly jumped and pounced on the little girl in the distance. He stretched out his big hand and hugged the crying little girl into his arms. During this process, countless bullets flew past Thunder Eagle, and Thunder Eagle dodged. After dodging, Thunder Eagle jumped with the little girl in his arms. The body began to deform. Transformed into a fighter. The engine behind the fighter jet ejected blue flames and shot into the sky. The little girl sat in the driver's seat, looking at the scene at a loss. Thunder Eagle looked at the giant mechas of the wolf pack below through the radar. He said, "Where did these things come from? No, I have to tell Big Brother about this." In the blink of an eye, Thunder Eagle flew away quickly under the gaze of the tall warriors. At the same time, Shenmue looked at the scene in front of him through his consciousness. "I didn't expect that the mechanical race would also join this war. Shenmue could stop this battle." For him, it was just a thought. But Shenmue didn't intend to stop it. When the advanced civilization invaded the low-level civilization, it would form a terrible blow to everything in the low-level civilization, whether it was politics, culture, economy, or life. But in the same way, the invasion of the advanced civilization would also bring great stimulation to the low-level civilization, and this stimulation would inevitably make the low-level civilization grow and develop. Shenmue didn't intend to find that these advanced civilizations on Earth would die out, because angels, eastern dragons, and these farm workers would naturally not allow the advanced civilization to slaughter. But Shenmue didn't expect that the mechanical race started to participate at the beginning. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 259. For Shenmue, observing what happened in the Tal civilization and the current Earth civilization became an interesting thing. He removed the angel form and turned back to the Earth, and then observed what was happening in his body every day through his consciousness. There are various highly intelligent life forms living on Earth, including humans, elves, orcs, elves, goblins, etc. In half a year, the current Earth civilization composed of these highly intelligent life forms is no match for the 100-meter giant Tal civilization. As long as they encounter it, it will be a one-sided massacre. Only the technology possessed by the mechanical race can cause some damage to the Tal civilization. The Tal people began to create their own base in the valley. Because the space entrance was too small, the Tal people began to collect the existing resources on Earth. The diameter of the space entrance is 20 meters. The average height of the Tal people is 100 meters. If it were humans, the average height of humans is 1.7 meters, so the height of the space entrance would be about 34 centimeters. The Tal people would continue to climb over. For them, this entrance is too small. Therefore, the Tal people built a military base in the valley and used the resources of the earth to manufacture various weapons and equipment. In order to enable the advanced intelligent life on the earth to have the ability to fight against the Tal civilization, the angels, the eastern dragons and the mechanical race began to help these advanced intelligent life and teach them knowledge about science and technology energy. With the help of the angels, the eastern dragons and the mechanical race, the technology of the current Earth civilization began to develop wildly at a speed of 1 day for 100 years under the pressure of the Tal civilization. As time went by, Shenmue found that as a planet, he finally left the seemingly boundless void, because he saw other celestial bodies besides himself. These celestial bodies are countless asteroids. There are many asteroids. The asteroids that Shenmue saw at the beginning came from the asteroid belt of the solar system, and then the Kuiper belt. After flying for so long, I finally saw a new celestial body again. After this period of time, Shenmue finally stopped being an astronomical novice through his research on the knowledge base. These asteroids, Shenmue naturally knew what they were. The asteroids outside the Kuiper belt can only be the Oort cloud. Originally, there was no solar system in the universe. The solar system was born in a dust cloud. A dust cloud is a large nebula composed of countless dust particles. They have a very large mass, but they are all made of dust, and individual dust particles are very small. These dust clouds will slowly merge over time. As part of the dust merges, gravity will form and gradually swallow up other dust particles. As more and more dust is swallowed, the initial celestial embryo will be formed. When the mass reaches a certain level, it will become a planet or a star. All the stars and planets in the solar system were formed in the dust cloud. The dust cloud covers a very large area, but after the dust in the middle of the dust cloud is cleared by the formed star, that is, the Sun and other planets, the dust cloud will become empty, leaving only the solar system. But outside the solar system, those dust particles that are too far away to be affected by the gravitational force of the solar system, because their remaining mass is not enough to form planets, they form dust and rocks themselves, and become what we call asteroids. This is the Oort cloud. In fact, it is just a large circle of dust and rocks that surround the solar system. Of course, some of them will be thrown into the solar system due to various gravitational forces, captured by the Sun and begin to move around the Sun, but because of their small mass and very long time around the Sun, they become what we call comets, and some are captured by planets and directly become meteorites or meteors. The Oort cloud is a sphere that wraps around the Sun, like the shell of an egg. If all of this stuff is added together, it is as large as 100 Earth masses, but the space distance it spans is enough to make Shenmue lose his appetite for swallowing. I don't know how many years it will take to swallow all of this stuff. It took so long to swallow this stuff for 100 Earth masses. Shenmue said that he was not bored. Seeing so many planets means that we are not far from Proxima Centauri. If the solar system is taken together with the Oort cloud, then the Oort cloud is the shell of an egg, and the position of this shell is exactly between the Sun and Proxima Centauri, which means that it will take twice as long to reach Proxima Centauri. After realizing this, Shenmue felt a little excited. There is nothing more exciting than reaching the destination. After such a long time, what Shenmue felt was that the space was big, spacious, and extremely spacious. As a planet, Shenmue saw this space from the perspective of a planet, and what he could feel was emptiness and loneliness. Although there are all kinds of creatures inside the earth, they are not the same existence as Shenmue after all, and what they pursue is different from Shenmue. They cannot understand Shenmue, so Shenmue has no companions, no friends. In this vast space, he is a wandering planet, a lonely existence. Of course, Shenmue does not need others to understand him. The universe is too vast, too big. Planets are like grains of sand on the seabed, and the seabed is still not vast. The distance between grains of sand is more than 10,000 meters. Inside the moon. Sister Elvii, I don't understand. Angel Ching came to find Levi. Levi was soaking in the hot spring. She looked at Angel Ching and said, "What's the puzzle?" Angel Ching said, "We have already known very well by looking through the information database of the Tal people. They came to this planet through a space-time tunnel that suddenly appeared. Why don't we just let the sisters destroy the space-time tunnel? In this way, with the current technology of the Tal people, they can't pass it. In order to make it easier for the angels to manage the farm and avoid the angels being used because they can't figure out other people's intentions, Chen Mu shared the ability of the information database with the angels a few days after he obtained it himself. The angels can naturally know the situation of the Tal people through this ability." Levi looked at Angel Ching and said, "That time-space tunnel was created by the warp engine. It is not difficult for us to destroy it with our knowledge base and technological power, but we can't do that." "Why?" Angel Ching was puzzled. Levi looked at Angel Ching and slowly retracted her gaze. "Do you know who created that time-space tunnel?" Angel Ching was startled and a little puzzled. She said, "According to the information from the Tal people's database, that time-space tunnel suddenly appeared on the South Island, that is to say, it was not created by the Tal people, and the Earth currently does not have this ability, unless—" She was stunned for a moment, then looked at Levi. "Is it the ancestor?" Levi nodded slightly. "So, we can't close it?" But why did the ancestor do this?" Angel Ching didn't understand. She frowned and seemed a little confused. Looking at Angel Ching's expression, Levi smiled. "You don't understand the ancestor's intentions. His wisdom is so deep that ordinary people can't understand it." Angel Ching was slightly startled. She looked at Levi. "Sister Levi, do you know?" "Of course. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first." Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 260. "What is that?" Ching looked at Levi curiously. Levi looked at the hot spring in front of her, and she whispered, "The ancestor asked us to spread scientific and technological knowledge to the mortal world. We have spent so much time and have learned a lot of technology, but now we need an opportunity to spread these technologies. If there is no invasion of the Tal civilization, our only chance is to look at the famine problem faced by the mortal world. After the famine problem is solved, the world will probably use the technology we teach to kill each other as before. But it's different now," Levi said. "With the invasion of the Tal civilization, the people of the mortal world have reached a consensus. They will unite and fight against the Tal civilization together. At the same time, they will absorb the knowledge we spread like a sponge, and the technology of the Tal civilization can just become the object of their research and experiment. At present, the technological advancement of the mortal world is almost comparable to the development of other self-researching civilizations in 100 years. Jane, simply speaking, there are 3 points. First, the invasion of the Tal civilization has united the lives of the mortal world. Second, the invasion of the Tal civilization has made the lives of the mortal world more eager for the power of science and technology. Third, the invasion of the Tal civilization has provided the lives of the mortal world with materials for scientific research, allowing them to grow faster." Hearing this, Qing's eyes shone with a glimmer, and she said, "The ancestors' thoughts are indeed far-reaching, but, will the price be too high?" She looked at Lu Yi and said, "The Tal civilization has destroyed too many lives?" Lv Yi's hand fell on the water of the hot spring, gently slid across the water, and said, "The ancestor has his own thinking. The ancestor looks at things from a different perspective than us. From the overall situation, this move is indeed costly, but the benefits obtained are not small." Angel Ching looked at Lu Yi's hand, and her mouth moved. "Devil, or angel?" When Lu Yi heard it, she looked at Angel Ching. Angel Ching came back to her senses and said, "The ancestor created them, but brought them disasters. Although it was for the overall situation, in their eyes, the ancestor was more like a devil." Lv Yi retracted her gaze. "Perhaps, you should say that it is an angel wearing a devil's mask. At present, if the mortal world wants to make progress, it needs to change, and this is the pain before the change. In the past 3,000 years, these beings in the mortal world have done too many meaningless things. Angel Ching could only remain silent, watching Lve slide her fingers on the water surface and watching the ripples on the hot spring. Chen Mu continued to fly in the ether cloud towards Proxima. While continuing as usual, he observed the development of the civilization in his body. The two planetary civilizations, Earth civilization and Tal civilization, are now fighting one war after another in Chen Mu's body. But what surprised Chen Mu at first was that these Tal civilizations did not use large-scale weapons such as nuclear weapons. Later, Chen Mu discovered the reason by browsing the Commander Information Database of Tal civilization. The Tal Alliance is worried that after the technology of the current Earth civilization develops, it will actively invade Tal Star, so it wants to destroy all the highly intelligent life on Earth before the current Earth civilization develops. At the same time, the Tal Alliance also intends to occupy the current Earth after destroying all the highly intelligent life on Earth civilization and make the current Earth its own, so they do not intend to use nuclear weapons. After all, that would cause too much damage to the environment. Looking at the ideas of the top leaders of the Tal Alliance, Chen Mu had some special ideas. In order to protect the environment, those lives on the original Earth more than 3,000 years ago did not intend to use nuclear weapons. Many people think that the reason for not using nuclear weapons is to protect the Earth, but in fact, for the Earth, no matter how humans destroy it, even if the Earth is blown beyond recognition, causing the environment to be full of radiation. As long as the sun is still there and the Earth can still rotate, then after a while, the Earth will return to its previous appearance. And humans will usher in the end of the world in environmental changes. In fact, humans do not use nuclear weapons to protect not the Earth, but humans themselves. However, the idea that the Tal civilization wants to occupy the Earth is obviously a bit ridiculous. For Chen Mu himself, destroying the Tal civilization in his body was just a thought. He just wanted to use the Tal civilization to stimulate the current Earth civilization and make it develop. Of course, the most important thing is that Chen Mu was too bored, so he just wanted to do an experiment. There are many races in the current Earth civilization, and these races are united with the help of angels, eastern dragons, and mechanical races. Each race uses new technology to build an army that is capable of fighting against the Tal civilization. They named it after the two words Pangu in Pangu continent. Because the human race has the largest number, the name of the human army is called Pangu Army. In the base of Pangu Army, Guyin drove a 3-meter-high mecha, with flames spraying from behind, driving the mecha into the warehouse. The mecha fell. Steam came out of the mecha, and the mecha cabin opened. Guyin walked out of the mecha cabin, and as soon as she walked out, her legs softened and she collapsed directly on the ground. "Are you okay?" A mecha maintenance worker nearby came over and reached out to help Guyin. Guyin waved her hand and slapped the man's hand away. She struggled to get up and dragged her body toward the door. The maintenance worker was stunned for a moment, looked at Guyin's back, then he retracted his sight and looked at the mecha. The mecha in front of him was badly damaged, and one arm was missing. "This is too tragic. This is the mecha of Team 203, strange, why is there only one back? I remember when Team 203 went on a mission in the morning, the entire team of 10 mechas went out together. Could it be that the other 9 members of Team 203 are all gone? How is this possible? This is an A7 mecha, equipped with the strongest uranium bomb, which can penetrate the armor of those giants and kill the giants inside with one shot. Since the mecha was developed until now, after countless battles with giants, it has never been like this." Bang! Suddenly a muffled sound rang out. Everyone subconsciously looked at the source of the sound. Guyin was standing at the door, her face gloomy, and punched the wall. She slowly retracted her fist, but her fist was full of blood. Guyen gritted his teeth, thinking of the death of his companions, and clenched his fists. Blood slowly dripped onto the ground. Soon, the top leaders of Pangu Army 1 got the news. What? Team 203 was destroyed with only one mecha left. How is this possible? Team 203 is equipped with the most advanced A7 mecha we currently have, which has flexible capabilities and uranium bombs that can penetrate the armor of the Tal people and kill the Tal people inside. How could Team 203 be destroyed? Everyone was puzzled. Until the top leaders of Pangu Army 1 saw the enemy faced by Team 203 through the built-in camera of the surviving mecha. That enemy was a 100-meter giant like most Tal warriors. Boom! Along with the bullet bombardment of Team 203, a hole was blown out in the chest of the 100-meter giant. When the top leaders saw the skeleton, everyone in the command center of Pangu Army 1 was shocked. There was only machinery and steel in the hole, without any flesh and blood. This was totally inconsistent with their understanding of Tal warriors. Logically, Tal warriors were warriors wearing mecha suits, but this thing in front of them had no flesh and blood in its body, but was made entirely of steel.